Jerry, I mean, I appreciate everything you've told us. I've heard, with everything that's going on with the NAR settlement, that sellers are no longer obligated to pay the buyer's commissions. So, I mean, I'm willing to pay you a commission, but I feel like the buyer should be paying, the agent their own commission.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's very generous of you, to be okay with, offering a listing commission. Thanks for that. What I do want to share with you is this. Really, nothing has changed. The seller hasn't been obligated to pay before, and the seller is not obligated to pay now. The only thing that's really changed is basically a informative disclosure online on what's being offered or not, and whether it's made of that information is made available to the public. But now, with that said, again, everything is still the same. So why why should you and why shouldn't you pay a buyer's commission? And what does it benefit to you? So now imagine, I or imagine you have the buyer and the buyer's agent, right? And
Yeah.
there's 10 houses for them to show. Okay. Five of them are offering 3% commission, and four of them are offering 2% commission. So that's nine properties, but that 10th one is offering no commission. You think they're going to show that 10th one?
Um, yeah, but my attitude is this. I mean, if you're gonna buy a house, I mean, you should have the money to buy a house. If not, I mean, why even buy a house?
Sure. And I understand that. It's just that in this market right now, we already know that people are strapped for cash, and it's hard for your everyday buyer to come up with closing costs, and even so much more to come up with a commission. Um, you know, and that's just a numbers thing. So that potentially could decrease your pool of buyers. Does that make sense?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I think I know where you're going with this, and yeah, that makes sense.
All right. And you did say you wanted to be in Georgia in 60 days, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So we need to be under contract in 30 days or less, close in 30 days or less, and get you to Georgia in time. So if we were potentially to offer less, do you think that would help us with our timeframes or hurt us with our timeframes?
Um, yeah, I'm not sure. I think it probably could potentially, maybe, delay us a little bit, but it's just that, Jerry, I told you that I need to take every single penny with me to Georgia to buy the next house.
Indeed, and I'm most certainly going to fight tooth and nail for every dollar of yours, because your best interest is my best interest. And especially with negotiations and marketing and offers that we accept. So, with that in mind, I think with juggling time and money, time being more important than money, we definitely want to save the time. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it does. I guess it does make sense. Yeah.
All right. So what do you feel comfortable offering the buyer's agent?
Um, I, 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 I don't know. I want to. I mean, maybe a 2% commission.
Okay, gotcha. And let's take a look at what your neighbors are offering. So, out of 10, five of them are offering 3%, four are offering 2%, and then one of them is offering zero. So, what do you think will help your home sell faster?
Um, I think, I, I mean, I think 2%. I mean, I think that's the most I'm willing to give. If anything, I mean, can you maybe cut down some of your commission and give some of them to them?
Well, yeah, I appreciate that, and I get that question a lot. Um, LSAO. Sorry, I want to get that right. I get that question a lot. However, when we're in the process of selling your home, there's going to be a lot of conversations while you're not in the room, And do you want someone to be able to protect your bottom line and your seller net process proceeds while you're not in the room?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that one more time? You were breaking up.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So in the sales process, there's going to be a lot of conversations taking place while you're not present, especially with negotiations of your homes, such as roof and time frames and seller concessions and such. You want someone to be able to fight for you and protect your profits, correct?
Yes, I do.
All right. So if I can't protect my own profits, how am I going to protect yours?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
All right, great. I agree with you as well. So, what do you feel comfortable with as far as offering to the buyer's agent, especially in comparison to what your neighbors are offering?
I mean, you mentioned that there's some offering at 2.5. Yeah, I say 2.5%. That's the maximum I would be willing to offer.
And I agree with you. I think that's a fair offer. Let's go ahead and move forward with that.
Okay, sounds good. Boom.
Good job.
Cool,
It's all
man.
hypothetical at this point. But Aaron, what are your Alicia? What are your thoughts on the objection handler and how he had gone through with the conversation?
Okay. So overall, it was good overall. Good and great job, by the way. He actually remained calm, confident. I think it got a little wordy in part of it. He was more telling than asking questions at the very beginning, and then he flipped it and started asking more questions, which that turned out to be good. Maybe just less wordiness and more question based. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing that I heard is in the example that you're going to give about compensation, I would not put it in the context as if you were an agent, because it's kind of like removed, right? They're like a couple steps removed from that. I think what's more effective is to put them in the position of a buyer. So let's say you were a buyer, Eliseo, and you were getting ready to buy a home, and there were like 10 properties, let's say, that fit the criteria in your geographic area, and 7 of them are offering out compensation that would pay your buyer's agent, and 3 of them are offering out nothing. I mean, which properties do you think you would instruct your agent to show you first? And then be quiet. I think that's far more effective and efficient, because in the other way, where you're putting them in the position of the agent, it's kind of like about you, really. Where if you put it in the context of if you were a buyer, that's easier. It's an easier jump for them to make, and it's easier for them to come to the conclusion. See, Eliseo hesitated a little bit, where he's like, "Yeah, dude, like that's cool, but like, I don't know, like I really don't care about the agent." You know what I'm saying? But if we put him in the context of the buyer, he would have very quickly said, "Well, yeah, I'd probably tell them to show me the ones that were going to compensate my agent," and then to kind of drill that down, you can be like, "Yeah, and why is that?" Well, I mean, if I can get somebody else to pay my agent, that'd be fantastic. Exactly. And don't you think most buyers feel pretty similar to you? And he'll be like, well, yeah. All right. Well, just by you saying that then demonstrates that you recognize that the professional fee is one of the tools that we use to market the property, and will increase the chances that we can get as many people looking as possible. And how do you think we're going to net the most? If we limit the exposure in some way, or if we broaden it as much as possible? Well, if we broaden it. Okay. So being that's the case, now we can have a conversation about how much we're going to offer, because it sounds like you've already decided you want to offer it because you see how it can help you to net the most. It's really just a question of how much. So we'll go over the options that you have, and whatever you decide, I'll support you. Okay. You see how that's like, it's more concise, it's more economy of words, and I think it's easier for the consumer to understand it.
Very nice. Thanks, Aaron.
I also think that the way Aaron is addressing it is in a two-pronged manner. Number one, he's getting them to recognize that, hey, offering a commission is a good idea. And then once he gets them to recognize that it is a good idea, then he handles the how much are we going to offer. Now, in your example of how much we're going to offer, I would say a little bit more guidance. So like what I noticed was like, okay, what would you like to offer? There's ways to ask questions where you're somewhat leading them to do it. And like, they say, or I've heard that the stronger your presentation, the less objections that you get. So, you know how you said that example of like 10 houses, 5 of them are offering 3%, 4 of them are offering X percentage, and 1 of them's offering not. I would incorporate that into the second part potentially and be like, well, look, now that we know that obviously offering a commission is the right thing to do, now it simply comes down to how much commission are we going to offer. So what I like to do is I like to share with you like just 10 random properties. That way we can see what other neighbors have been offering their the buyers as a credit so that they can use towards the buyer's side of the commission. So we look at the neighbor on 123 Banana Street, 3%. This one, 3%, 3%, 3%, 2.5%, 2.5%, 2.5%, 3, 2.5%. So as you can see from this example, 9 out of the homes offered more than 2.5%, with one of them not offering this. Or now that we won't be able to advertise like the commission, what I was planning on doing is look, what we can do to kind of see what is somewhat considered normal is we can go back in time when agents were actually offering buyer's agent or when agents were able to see how much other sellers were offering, and this is what was normal at that time. 3%, 3%, 3%, 2.5%, 2.5%, 3%, 3%, 2.5%. If you can see, 9 out of the 10 sellers were offering north of 2.5%, with one of them offering 2%. So in order to maximize exposure, would you like to offer 2.5%, or would you like to offer 3%, or what would you like to offer?
Yeah, and there's a way that you can do it, like what Jose's saying about like leading, right? You're asking questions in a leading manner. So it's like, all right, so I'm going to go over the options that you have, and whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. So the first option is we offer out nothing. Now, as we just went over, and I agree with you that could end up affecting showings. That's something to consider. The other issue is that usually takes longer. Can I explain to you what I mean? It's like, well, yeah. Well, what we're seeing is that the less compensation that's offered out, it ends up taking longer to actually sell the property. So you were kind enough to share with me that the main reason that you wanted to sell was X, Y, and Z. And time frame wise, you wanted to make that happen within the next 4 months, which means we need to be under contract with a solid buyer that's going to close in the next 45 to 60 days. Have you thought of that? And they're like, well, not really. It's like, all right. And tell me this, what would happen on the outside chance if we were still sitting here 120 days from now and the home wasn't sold? Well, it would not be good, and I'd have to leave without my wife, and that's really not an option. Okay. So being that that's the case, it really seems like the option of offering out nothing really wouldn't serve you and your family well. You see how that's like, I'm asking questions, but I'm leading them to that conclusion. And now that's off the tape. And then it's like, okay, so then the second option is, and then you can continue to go down the track in terms of like the different options that they have at their disposal. Second option is, do we offer out a credit of some sort? You know, because per the rules, this rule change, which actually hasn't gone into effect yet, but we can operate under the assumption that it is in effect. We can still offer a concession in the multiple listing service. And what we're seeing as we kind of deal with this real time in this price point is somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000. Now, in doing so, what we'd be doing is that money the buyer can use either towards their closing costs, which would free up capital for them to pay their agent, or they can use it to compensate their agent. And then the third option that we have at our disposal is we do what we've been doing for the last 50 years, is that we offer out with an agreed upon purchase and sales price, with an acceptable offer, a certain percentage of the agreed upon purchase and sales price towards compensation, which, as you shared with me, and I agree with you, would increase exposure to the fullest capacity and make sure we get the most in the quickest amount of time. Either one of those are okay. So my question is based on what you're looking to accomplish and why and the time frame you'd like to make it happen in, which one of these options do you think would serve you and your family best? So I'm asking questions, but to Jose's point, who's growing that beard back, he looks so cute. Look at him, bro. He's such a stud. I can ask questions in a way that leads them to a decision that would actually serve them really well.
So what I was hearing from Jerry was just like, what would you like to do? But no like guidance or no leading. It was just like, what would you like to do? And if you're not leading them in a way or guiding them, you're like basically going to get like some sort of random response. Like,
well, and that's why Eliseo is like, I mean, if you ask somebody, what would you like to do? They're like, I'd like to pay nothing. That's what I'd like to do. Like,
yeah.
You're not giving them any reason as to why. So just like when I went down that path and I'm like, well, as far as like offering out nothing and how it can end up affecting like exposure, which ultimately affect how much we can get, when we went through that other kind of analogy in terms of if you were a buyer, which properties would you instruct your agent to show you first, ones that were compensating your agent or ones that were not? And then the second issue is this time. And then we bring that up. So you were kind of to share with me that you wanted to make this move happen in the next 120 days. We have to be under contract in the next 45 to 60 with a solid buyer that's going to close. So tell me this, what would happen on the outside chance if we were still sitting here 120 days from now and the home wasn't sold? Well, that would be terrible, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So it really seems like the option of offering out nothing really wouldn't serve you and your family best. If I don't put it into the context of surviving and thriving, they're not going to pay attention to you. And that's part of why you heard Eliseo say, you lost me for a second. It's because I'm not putting it in the context of surviving and thriving. That's the way our brains are wired. It's doing two things at the same time. Number one, is this going to help me to survive or thrive? If it's not put in that context, I stop paying attention. Number two, your brain is trying to conserve calories. So the harder it is for me to understand something, the less I'll pay attention to it.
Aaron, would the surviving and thriving be the same thing as pleasure and pain?
Yeah, it's a version of that. But I think surviving and thriving is actually more accurate because it's more biological. And from a biological perspective, like biology is competitive, selective, and it has to like breed. And our brains are wired for survival or thriving. So you can put it in the context of pain or pleasure, but I think the root is really, is this going to help me to survive? And will this help me thrive?
Yeah.
So there's different kind of surviving, right? Like one is, will this help me to conserve resources? Because the resources, I need money to pay for housing, food, transportation, to survive. Well, what's a company that their whole business model is based on conserving resources? That's Walmart. We'll help you save money so you can have more money to survive, right? Another one is will this help me actually make more money? Because if I make more money, it taps into two things. Survival, it gives me more money to pay for those things I need, but also thriving. It actually taps into both, right? Another form of surviving is status. Will this help me get status? Because status, when we were in hunters and gatherers and in tribes, was a way that you could form alliances if you had status. It would also help you to keep away enemies, and it would help you with mate selection. That still does now to this day. That's why people wear Rolexes and all this other shit to try to attract mates, right? So it's a status thing. Okay. So there's different forms of survival and thriving, but if you don't understand them, then what you are is just a parrot that's you're parroting words, but you're not actually understanding underneath what's really going on. So when that whole sequence that I just did about hey, with regards to how it could affect showings, which ultimately affects how much you can get. What does that tap into? Making more money, which has to do with surviving and thriving. Then if I'm hey, what would happen on the outside chance if we were still sitting here 120 days from now and it wasn't sold? That taps into survival because he's man, I'd have to stay here. My wife would have to move. This would be really difficult and blah, 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 blah. But do you see, because I put it in that context, Eliseo's going to pay attention to everything I say. If I'm not putting it in that context, he's going to stop listening to me and you'll hear him be can you say that again? Because you know what he was really saying? I stopped fucking listening. That's what he said.
Because I was trying to conserve calories.
Because I'm trying to conserve calories. You're talking too much. It's too complicated. And I'm trying to conserve calories, so I just stopped listening. That's really what's happening, guys.
The other thing I would say is this whole concept of leading and guiding them is a principle that applies not only to this conversation, but to everything. So let's say that you're looking to set like a buyer's consultation with a buyer. What I would say is like, well, look, the first step in the home buying process is for us to set up a buyer's consultation. In a buyer's consultation, we're going to be going over what we're going to get a lot more clarity on what you're looking for. We're going to explain to you what the marketplace is doing. And then we're going to basically share with you our process for helping you find the right property at the right price. Is that something that you're open to? But if you notice that statement, I'm guiding them through a process, basically. With selling has to do with guiding people through processes as well, too. You know, it has to do with like, okay, this is almost like this is the way, in guiding them to it. That's one example. Another example is I'm presenting offers. I could be like, hey, look, this is what they're offering. In this situation, clients have three options. One, they accept the offer. Two, they counter. In some cases, they would counter with X, Y, and Z. And three, they reject. Obviously, I don't recommend rejecting. Most of my clients either accept the offer or counter. What would you like to do?
Yeah, and so that's perfectly positioned because he's guiding them to the decision. And if you notice, he very quickly and briefly said, like, yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend like rejecting the offer completely. What most of my clients do, which taps into like, social proof, right? Like this is what other people do. And you're like, oh man, that's what other people do. I want to do what other people do. Is they either accept the offer the way that it's written, or they decide to counter in some way. Right. And so, prior to you making your decision, what I'd like to do is just kind of share with you my professional experience and hope that it can help you to make the decision that you feel is best. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. So there's two things that I don't know with a high degree of certainty. Number one is how long it would take to get another offer, because it could take a week, it could take months. Like, I don't know that. And then the second thing I don't know with a high degree of probability is if and when we did receive another offer, if it would be any better. Right. I don't know that either. So, ultimately, whatever you decide, I'll support you. Now, prior to us making the decision of which one of these options we want to kind of choose, what I'd like to do is just ask you a couple quick questions with regards to the move so I can get crystal clear clarity around what we're looking to accomplish and why. Would that be okay? Well, yeah. Well, tell me again, like, why is this move important to you? What would happen on the outside chance if we had to wait another 60 days to get another offer? What about this offer do you think, kind of works for you? You know what I mean? Like, you start to ask questions. How would your life improve in some way if we were able to get this under contract and make the move? Well, this, and this. Okay. So with all that being said, again, one's at our disposal. Obviously, if we accept the offer the way it's written, great, we're done. We move forward and we're, 30 days away from you getting all the things that you just described to me that this move's going to do. If we counter, and I want you to be clear, my intention in sharing what I'm about to share with you is not to be negative. It's not to dissuade you in any way. I just need you to be completely clear on, what the situation is so you can make the decision again that you feel would serve you best. When we counter, we start the process all over again. And they can say yes, no, or they can decide they're going to move on. Either one. Okay. My suggestion is that if we do decide to counter, we make it a very reasonable one that they would strongly consider, if not accept. Because right now, only 6 out of 10 buyers are getting approved for a loan. And these people have a very solid financial situation in terms of what they're putting down. We've spoken to the lender and, do all that stuff. Now, if you do this right, guys, do you know what they will say to you? What do you think, Jose? If you do it right, they will ask you out loud, well, what do you think, Tim? Well, I appreciate you asking. And, I take the responsibility very seriously, which is to protect the value of your property and get you the best terms and conditions. And speaking to the other agent, it seems like there might be like a little room left, not like a bunch, right? So what the most reasonable counter would be is to split the difference, right? You get a little bit more, they feel like they're getting a little bit of value, and we proceed from there. Now, if we did decide to do that, that would mean a net to you of this. Would that allow you to make this move happen? Notice, not is that enough, because it's never enough. Will that allow you to make this move happen? They're like, well, yeah. Okay, then what do you think we should do? Yeah, I think we should probably do that. So this goes back to, right? It goes back to story brand completely. You want to position yourself as the guide, not as the hero. By asking questions and finding out if this is about survival or if it's about thriving, finding out like what's important to them and why. Because we try to sell solutions to external problems. But consumers are much more interested in solving the internal problem that's frustrating them. That's what they're actually much more interested in solving, right? So what would be like the external problem is I need to sell my house. What's the internal problem? Frustration. Well, my kids aren't in a good school district and I really want to get them in a better school district. That's the internal frustration. Another internal frustration might be like, yeah, like I can't afford this anymore. The external problem is like, yeah, my rates went up or whatever, and now it's costing me more. What's the internal frustration? Well, it's got to like working. You see what I'm saying? So by positioning yourself as a guide, you find out, you can ask questions to find out what the external problem is. But what I want to get down to is the internal frustration, because that's the thing they're actually trying to solve. They're not trying to solve the external problem. They're trying. So give an example. Let's put it in a different context. Let's say somebody who does like lawn care. You think they're selling like cutting lawns. They're not. You know what they're solving? Where this internal frustration that my neighbor's yard looks better than mine and I'm embarrassed when people come to my house. That's the problem that they're actually solving. You see what I'm saying? You think like Uber's in the business of ride sharing. They're not. They're in the business of the internal frustration of having to wait 20 minutes for a taxi to show up. They're actually in the business of conserving time, which is one of the survival things. Because if I have more time, then I can, have more resources to survive, right? They're actually in the business. The internal frustration is waiting. That's the problem that they solve. I can push a button and in 5 minutes, somebody shows up to my house. I remember you call a taxi and 25 minutes later, they show up.
Yeah. So Jerry, I would just make those adjustments to basically be able to guide people better. The way I kind of felt when you were telling them, what would you like to do, was just like it's my first time doing something. You've told me options, but no guidance whatsoever. And it's kind of just like, what would you like to do? And it's kind of like, no idea,
More guidance. Yep.
Yo, FYI, there's only 7 people on this call that has their camera on. Will you stop being an undercover agent and flip your camera on, please?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Come on,
Look,
guys.
if I can do it while I'm in this thing, bro, you can do it, okay?
I was going to say something. I'm like, if Aaron can do it in that suit and Jose can do it behind a bed.
You keeping my bed warm for me, bro, when I come out there? Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
FYI, I'm going to be in California, bro. So if you want to like meet up or connect at the end of the month, me and Jose.
I think it's the 31st, 20, somewhere at the end of the month.
I know you're counting down. You're counting down the days, bro. All right.
What else, guys? What else would you guys like to work on?
For sale by owner.
All right.
You want to be the I'll be the agent. You be the owner. That's cool.
That's cool.
All right, let's go.
All right.
Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hi, I'm calling about the property located on 123 Banana Street.
Yeah. Who is this? Another agent?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you ask. So I'm sure you've been bombarded with a bunch of calls and you listed your property. And that normally happens when you go for sale by owners. So my name is William with United Realty Group. I just wanted to find out if you're willing to cooperate with agents, or are you doing from owner to owner right now?
Just owner to owner. But I've got to tell you, William, you're about the 20th agent that calls me already. And you guys are all telling me that you guys can sell my property, that you guys can bring me a buyer. So here's what I would say. If you just bring me a buyer, we are paying a compensation, just to kind of cut straight to the point,
Right. So if I bring you a buyer, you're willing to cooperate. But that's what you mean.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. Do you have a number in mind that you're willing to offer at this point, or it's too early to talk?
No. I think I would be willing to offer 2.5%.
Right, and I see the location of your property because I work that area, with buyers and sellers. If you don't mind me asking, there's any particular reason you even considering selling your property?
Well, why is that important?
Well, what I'm trying to find out if there's a way to add value. You know, my intention is to ask questions. Again, it's not to be noisy, but you know, it's to find the ways to add value. And if not, it's okay as well.
But how would you add value if like in that situation? Like I don't see the reason of where I'm moving to how you would add value.
Well, because I appreciate you asked. We have I don't know if this will be applicable to you, but we have access to off-market properties. So I just wondering if you already purchased your property or you're still in the process of looking for a place to move right now.
No. I've already got it taken care of. I mean, I've got another property that I'm moving into already.
Absolutely, nice job. And this market is something challenging to do nowadays. So I see the price of your property. Are you willing to, you know, negotiate that price when you have a serious buyer in front of you?
I think I'm priced pretty well, and I think I'm getting pretty good activity. So I don't know if there's going to be a need to negotiate.
Right. And let me ask you, because you already have a property and that's an option for you to move and not sell this one, perhaps it's okay with you to rent it?
No. I mean, I have it for sale. I prefer to sell it.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you, I see, again, you're selling by owner. So there's any particular reason that you're willing to do this on your own instead of going to the traditional way? Meaning, you know, to have an agent helping you with, you know, the headaches of all the calls and all the time wasting by buyers that are not really serious?
Yeah, I mean,
you want to do all that work by yourself?
I did it a while back. So I did it like 10 years ago.
Oh, 10 years ago. Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell that, you know, 10 years ago, we were in a different market. So, okay, I need help closing. And at this point, sometimes I get stuck on the closing sequence.
Yeah. So here's what I'm noticing. Like, there's opportunities to lead once again when you're repeating and approving, and there's opportunities to guide. So, like, for example, like whenever they said that they're offering a commission, like you can lead them in a certain direction by the way you repeat and approve. So, like, one of the ways would be like, okay, great. So it sounds like you're okay with paying a buyer side of the commission. What it also sounds like is you're only looking to save the listing side of the commission. So let me ask you this. I mean, if there was a way where you can actually more than make up for the listing side of the commission, meaning get us higher sales price by putting it on the open market, is that something that you'd be open to? Do you see how I repeated and approved, but I also guided you in a way where it was like a close as well too. So I incorporated a close and a lead in that statement. So it's kind of very similar to that. I'm noticing like you're going through the questions, but there's like no leading them to the ultimate goal whenever you're repeating and approving in any way, shape, or form. So even when you asked me where I was moving to, and I'm like, oh, I already got that taken care of. Like a way to repeat and approve would be like your repeat and approve was like, oh, congratulations. That's actually pretty hard in today's marketplace. It sounds like you've already got that taken care. It sounds like you already accomplished the hard part, or like your repeat and approve was something along the lines like it's actually pretty tough in today's marketplace versus great. So it sounds like you've already got that taken care of. It sounds like the most important thing now is just to sell this property because you've already got that taken care of. So let me ask you this. In terms of timing, is there an ideal time frame for you to sell this property? Or does it really just come down to as soon as you find the right buyer? Well, as soon as I find the right buyer. Okay, great. So it sounds like if you found the right buyer in the next week, there wouldn't be anything holding you back, and you'd actually be ready to open up escrow and get this property closed. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. Do you see how I'm guiding / clarifying as I'm repeating and approving and as I'm asking questions? So like, I'll give you an example, and it's like almost like really understanding what they're telling me. So like, if I say I'm not interested right now, what does that mean to you?
Well, it's just now. You know, there might be an opportunity down the road.
So
Maybe they
repeat
want
and
to
approve.
wait.
So repeat and approve right now. Like repeat. Tell me what you would repeat and approve, and I say, hey, William, I'm not interested right now.
Yeah, and I totally understand. Can you unpack that a little bit for me? Is that you trying to work on your own, or now? Like, I really don't get that a lot, so that's why I'm not. But you know, like what I have learned is when people tell you something, there's more behind. So I ask, you know, when I have the conversation to unpack that, what does that really mean? Because, you know.
I think it's important. I think what you're saying is you clarify. I think that's important. I think that there's also, whenever you're repeating and approving, there's a way to repeat and approve in a way where you're leading them. Like, so if somebody tells me I'm not interested in selling right now, okay, great. So it sounds like right now is not the right timing. But what it also sounds like, at some point in the future, you may consider selling your property. Is that correct? Do you see how I'm kind of like repeating and approving, but I'm also clarifying and guiding them a little bit to the ultimate goal, which is for them to sell a property? Or which the ultimate goal is for you to get clarity whether or not they're actually going to sell. So there's opportunities where you can repeat and approve and guide and lead at the same time. So if I hear I'm not interested in selling right now, great. So it sounds like right now is not the right timing. But it also sounds like at some point in the future, you may eventually decide to sell. Just out of curiosity, like if you ever did sell in the future, are we talking about like in a month? Are we talking about 6 months? Are we talking about a year? Are we talking about 5 years, 10 years? What are we referring to?
Right. So yeah. So and that's why I'm being dealing with that, because like I make the calls, right, and I adjust, you know, to personalities and all that stuff. I could engage with people in conversation, but yeah, you're telling me that I'm asking questions, just I'm getting information, but not with the intention to guide them into those areas that I need them to go to close.
Yeah, the other thing that I would,
like you saw me. Go ahead.
The other thing that I would wonder is, like, how often are you role playing?
Not enough.
Yeah, so like what I'm aware of is
straight up.
And the other thing is, how often are you chanting?
Yep.
Or writing out the scripts as well too? Because what I hear in a lot of people is they come on here and they're practicing, but they never chant the script. So they never go back and be like, oh, this is a good line to use. And then they bring it and implement it in the role play. But even in this question, when I asked it, like, okay, the for sale by owner script, how do most people say? Most people say, how soon do you need to move, or how soon do you have to be there? And the very first question that you, or a lot of times what you get is, well, I'm not in a big hurry to do that, or I'm not in a big rush. You can ask this. Well, what I did, if I'm getting that response, is I'm changing the way that I ask the question. So instead of saying, how soon do you have to be there? I say, is there an ideal time frame for you to sell this property? Or does it really just come down to as soon as you find the right buyer?
Yeah, or ideally in terms of what you want, because that's what's most important. How soon would you like to make this move happen for you and your family?
And at times they may say to that question, they may say, well, I'm not really in a big hurry to do that. So the way I ask it is there an ideal time frame, or does it come down to as soon as you find the right buyer? What I want them to say, as soon as I find the right buyer. Because at that point, now it allows me to add a little bit of urgency. So Jose, it sounds like if you find the right buyer in the next week, it sounds like you're prepared to make the move and there wouldn't be anything holding you back from making the move. Because one of the biggest objections that you get with for sale by owners is kind of like I'm not really in a big rush. I've got enough time to do this, basically. So I think,
yeah, and I want everybody on this call to really understand that if you're not role playing every day and you're just calling people, you're dramatically hindering your ability to learn how to do this in high volume. Like dramatically. You're making this much more difficult than it actually needs to be. Because what you're doing is basically practicing ways that aren't the best ways, like aren't the best kind of approaches, and getting really good at it. You're getting really good at making yourself the hero. You're getting really good at like asking questions that aren't the best questions. So if you're going to put in the time to prospect, like not prospecting and not role playing is like working out and not paying attention to your diet. Like it's pointless. You know what I'm saying? So for everybody that's on this call, you have to ask yourself a question. Like I did a call with one of the people in our organization. He wanted to talk to me, and like, you know, the year's been a little bit of a challenge. And I know that's true for a lot of agents, but I asked him, I'm like, yo, to what degree are you a serious student? He said, well, what do you mean? I said, how many books have you read this year on persuasion, on sales, on communication? He was like 0. I'm like, how often are you role playing? He was like 0. So I'm like, is it a mature approach to imagine that you will be given a bounty and do a lot of deals when you're not a serious student and you're not working on your craft on a regular basis and basically are just practicing a not great way to do it? And you're practicing it on clients. It's just not a realistic expectation. So, you know, we just got word that like rates are going to, and dude, I did a post 6 months ago when everybody started posting in December, right? Oh, rates are going to come down 5 times this year. I'm like, look, if you guys understood economics, you would understand that what inflation really is too much money in the system. The only way you can pull money out of the system is by restricting people's access to it, which means rates have to be high. I looked at rates over the last 30, 40, 50 years. The last time the Fed funds rate was this high, they stayed high for a decade. I was like, yo, they're going to stay higher than what you want. They're probably not going to go up at all. And sure enough, they had a meeting yesterday and they're like, yep, we're probably not going to raise them this whole year. So all you guys who are hoping and wishing and praying that it was going to get easier because the cost of money was going to get cheaper, it's not a realistic expectation. But to imagine in Jose's marketplace, inventory's down 41% year over year. Sales, because he sent me the numbers in LA County in 2021 were like 8,000. Now they're under 5,000. Guys, to hallucinate that you cannot be a serious student and practice your craft on a regular basis when there's more people competing for the same opportunities is a recipe for failure. Period. End of story. Now, that may be tough to hear, but it doesn't make it any less true. You have to make a decision. Are you going to become a serious student? If you're not role-playing every day and you're not reading books on persuasion and on communication, guys, the truth is you're not a serious student. You're like a C+ student expecting an A+ outcome. That doesn't work.
So it's funny because I even went over this on a call that I had, and this was an example that Aaron gave me a long time ago. He said, William, if I wanted to lose weight, how would I do it? You there, William?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I wanted to lose weight, how would I do it?
Well, you have to work out. You have to put in the work.
What else would I have to do?
You have to eat right.
You have to eat right, and you have to basically work out, right? Okay. So
Consistently.
is the formula hard? Meaning, like, is there people that don't know that formula in this world? No.
Yeah, but not enough people like actually get to it.
Well, not enough people implement. Meaning, like, the formula is not hard to lose weight, but why is there fat people, including myself? Like last year, I freaking got up to 220. You know, I've lost some weight now, but why did I gain weight? It was the implementation. So it's the same thing here. It's like, okay, what's the formula to become a top producing agent? Number one is you basically practice every day. You chant your scripts. You basically role play twice a day, 6 days a week. You basically prospect every single day. You talk to people, and then you make adjustments every single day, bro. So, and then you focus on listings, you know? So is the recipe hard? No, it's the implementation. So whenever we ask people like, hey, look, are you role playing? it's not that we're trying to be like dicks in any way, shape, or form. It's just like, look, it's not that complicated, but most people don't do it and imagine that there's something else that they're missing, or like question why they're not improving at the rate that another person is improving. I'm noticing this same thing with my brother-in-law, who basically practices every day, and I'm noticing the improvement in his pitches every single day. I'm watching it live, how it's improving every single week. But it comes down to chanting your scripts, practicing, role playing, It's not complicated. Yet not simple, meaning the money's not in the formula. Everybody knows the formula. The formula's in the implementation and the consistency. That's where it's at. So this is the other example I gave. Some people, bro, they're going to hit their head one time and they're going to be like, fuck, I hate this feeling. I'm just going to practice twice a day, every single day, no matter what. And then there's going to be other people that are like, and just continue to hit their head. They're going to continue to do that. And either one of two things is going to happen. Number one is something's going to happen to them in their life where they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, or they're just going to continue doing that for the rest of their career, hoping that there was something different. So my question to you is, which one of these people is going to be you? This one?
Yeah, no, I think I got to that point that you said. I'm done with that already. That's why I'm here.
I know, but okay. You're here. You've been coming here for a year and a half, right? You're good at showing up to these calls, but imagine if I only practice one time a week, bro. Just imagine that.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, you're being real. Yeah.
Imagine Canelo, bro. If he just showed up to the fight without freaking practicing. Just imagine that. Not practice one bit. Just, hey, guys, I'm going to show up to this fight.
Yeah, like we've reached a point, like there's no like Ozempic for learning how to sell. We've reached a point. Yeah, we've reached a point where like we would rather take medication than vitamins, which is crazy. Like, and what it is it's about character development, right? So like there's a verse, like everybody, okay, you have to make a decision. Like in the music industry, people can ride trends and they may get a little popular and they may make a little bit of money. But what happens is that if you're riding trends, then it's not because of your actual like talent and ability. It's just about like what's cool right now. And you constantly have to be riding trends all the time. Versus if you're somebody who develops yourself as an individual and your skills are tip top, I'm always going to be relevant. Does that make sense? So I just need to like disengage with this desire to try to find a shortcut. There are no shortcuts are tools for the incompetent built upon mountains of nothingness, and those who use them seldom succeed. They don't actually lead anywhere. People spend a whole lifetime trying to find shortcuts. There isn't any. If you will just embrace the fact like, yo, this is going to take a while to get good at, and I'm going to suck at it at first. But like, hoping is not a business strategy, guys. Hoping that rates come down is not a business strategy. It's a beautiful word, but it's a terrible business strategy. The best way to deal with your issues is just get better. But the only way to get better, again, like we hop on these calls and like, yeah, we might give you feedback and stuff. But then it's like, bro, are you role playing regularly? No. Well, then like, I don't want to hear afterwards that it's tough. I don't want to hear afterwards like, oh, like, just market. Nobody's like, dude, you're not doing your part.
I'm over here having a whole freaking motivational conversation with myself, bro. I'm just kidding. What I was going to say, even the role playing without the chanting or without it's almost like the way I look at it, it's almost like trying to lose weight, but only doing half of it. Like meaning like either working out and no diet or diet with no working out, basically. I see that as that important because what you're looking to do when the chanting or the writing the scripts out, you're looking to look back and be like, okay, what's the right way to say this? How do I use my tonality to phrase this the right way so that when you go to role play, you know what you have to say, basically.
And you don't have to think about it anymore. So the way I view that, guys, like role playing every day is like elementary school. You're not even in college yet, bro. It's the barrier to entry just to be able to play. And you shouldn't get claps or accolades. It's like minimum requirement if you want to play. And then once you get that down, I no longer have to worry about what to say. Now we can get into more nuanced things like, you know, where I'm talking to you about like surviving and thriving or tonality or, you know what I mean? Like I can't even pay attention to that stuff if I'm still thinking about what to say.
Well, even guys, think about this from a boxing perspective. Okay, when boxers are training, why do they hit a punching bag and why do they hit a speedball versus just sparring? Why don't they just spar all day? Meaning, why don't they just role play all day? They're practicing technique. They're practicing angles. They're practicing like little tweaks to the punch. That's the same thing as chanting, and that's the same thing as this. Now, I'll tell you this. If you're not doing it, William, all it takes sometimes is just a little bit of accountability. That's all it takes. I tried to lose weight for a year doing it by myself. And then one of my friends told me, what are your goals for this year? I said, to lose some weight. And he goes, all right, what's the accountability metric? I fought it, bro. I didn't want to do it. I was like, nah, bro, I can do it on my own. He's like, you've been trying it on your own and you haven't done it. I'm like, you're right. And then I'm like, okay, I'll text you a screenshot every day that I completed certain activities. Otherwise, I lose $100. And then he was like, okay. He's like, I need this addition. I need you to send me the scale every day. I'm like, no, I can't send you the scale. Like, that's too much work. I'll forget, blah, blah, blah. He's like, look, it's not real accountability unless you send me the scale. And I'm like, oh, fuck. All right, I'll send you the scale once a week. Guess what happened, bro? After I added some accountability. What do you think happened? I lost some freaking weight. That's what happened.
Hey, how much did you lose? Like 20 pounds or something?
20 pounds. Why? I had the accountability. So for you to be like, damn, dude, like I'm going to do this, it's kind of foolish for us to think that we're going to accomplish it without some accountability if that's not your natural disposition. And for me, it's not. And then over time, it'll become a habit. And then over time, it'll feel weird when you don't do it.
Hey, and the intention here is we're not just speaking to you, brother. We're speaking to everybody on this call. You know what I'm saying? Like, ask yourself a question. Am I making C+ decisions and expecting A+ outcomes?
Facts. Yeah.
And brother, that role play
Thank
group
you.
would be free to you. If you just partner with us, bro, it's free. People say to me, well, can you go get the book from the library for me? It's like, no, you got to go get it yourself, bro. Like, what do you want, dude? All the information that you could possibly ever need is at the library and it's free. It's free. Well, can you go get it for me? No.
Well, even I'll tell you this, like, it's just a skill, William, that you have to learn. As I transition eventually out of production, and as I transition into like full-time EXP partner, meaning third-party calls all the time, I am going to have to learn new scripts.